This is the Kodak Ultra F9, one of the many simple-use point-and-shoot cameras available that is marketed under the Kodak brand. In this video, I'm going to feature an overview of the camera, sample images in a variety of common use cases, and my own thoughts from using this camera to shoot multiple rolls of film. If you're thinking about buying this camera, this should help you make up your mind, and if you already own it, provide some tips on how to get the best results. The Kodak Ultra F9 has been around for a while, and it's widely available in a lot of countries. It's a pretty common starter camera positioned at first-time film photographers and part of a family of relatively low-priced fixed-setting point-and-shoot cameras. This is an upgrade or alternative to buying a disposable camera. It will give you a similar aesthetic, but is less wasteful as it isn't single-use because you can reload it with film and continue to use it with different film stocks. The Ultra F9 has a 31mm fixed focus lens, a 1/120 shutter, AAA battery-powered flash, a manual wind and rewind, and a relatively lightweight plastic build weighing in at 170 grams. It's nearly identical to the cheaper M35 and M38 Kodak cameras, but for a little more money you get a slightly lower f-stop of f9 compared to the f10 on those cameras, and also a wrist strap and pouch included to help carry the camera and keep the lens clean. There are two colorways, this classic Kodak yellow with black trim that I have, and another option in dark green and white. This camera is available for £40 in the UK from filmprocessing.co.uk, and I have included my affiliate link down in the description. As a brand ambassador for filmprocessing.co.uk, I was gifted this camera to create videos about it for the community, and my intention with this review is to provide an objective look at the camera, showcasing its pros and cons to help you decide if it's a good fit for what you're looking for. Although I have shot some rolls of film previously with the Ultra F9, I decided to load up a new dedicated test roll to create some sample images especially for this video that would demonstrate its ability in a number of typical use cases I would expect someone starting out shooting film to try using it in. Therefore, you can use these sample images to make up your own mind as to whether you think the F9 is right for you. I typically recommend starting with 400 ISO film for fixed aperture simple use cameras, and either Kodak Ultramax 400 or Fujifilm Color 400 is a great place to start. Here I've loaded in Fujifilm Color 400. So to start off, here are some examples using it as an everyday carry camera. I brought it along for an autumn walk with Karis as we went on a morning coffee run. The Fujifilm is doing a good job of capturing the vibrant colours of the red and orange leaves. Here's a good example of the fixed 1/120th of a second shutter speed at work as I snap this cyclist passing by. In the shade of the covered walkway, you can see we are lacking low light detail here due to the limitations of the camera's f9 aperture. Here, this mid shot of Karis is a bit soft, likely due to a mix of the fixed focal length and camera shake and jitter I get shooting handheld with the lightweight plastic camera body. You can try to minimize this by bracing against your press of the shutter just before you take a photo. One of my other common issues with this camera is getting my fingers in frame. It has a 31mm lens which is relatively wide, and as the camera body is relatively compact, you might find your fingers creeping into frame depending on how you hold the camera. You can avoid this by making sure to press your fingers flat against the front when you take a photo. I can crop these out as well to rescue the image, but it is quite frustrating to have to keep remembering to hold it a very certain way when taking a photo. Here's a look at using the flash for portraits in a lower light golden hour scenario. So here Cameron is backlit by the sunset and I've not used the flash. You can see the image is underexposed, though there is enough information, and I've been able to improve it with a bit of exposure adjustment in Lightroom. Here is a second version where I've used the flash. Comparing the two, you can make your own mind up which style you prefer, but as you can see, it does relatively well in both cases. Here's another comparison of both cases where I've chosen to edit in Lightroom to get a little bit more out of the film scan. This is more beneficial to the photo without flash, which was a bit washed out and lacking in contrast. Now, this is an example of a landscape scene at the same time of day, trying to capture the golden hour sunset, which I think shows you the limits of this camera. You can't really be shooting with any less light than this. The sky and reflected light on the water picks up, but almost all of the other shaded areas fall off into grey and black with little to no detail in the shadows. Once the sun had gone down, I was still able to illuminate Cameron at a distance with the camera flash, but very little else in the frame can be seen at all. Transitioning to indoor environments, I strongly recommend using the flash. Here it's picking up Cameron and Danny nicely. You can see it works at more of a distance too, making it a good upgrade from a disposable if you like this style of indoor flash shooting for parties and gatherings. Extending the low light and indoor test a bit further, here is a shot I took at Blue Hour with the moon out. To the eye, this scene was far brighter, but the 400 ISO film couldn't handle it and it appears as if it's at night. Here's an edit I did to put some more contrast back into the the image. I also took some late evening shots by the Christmas steps, and again the results are very underexposed with only the overhead lights being recognizable. I think simple use cameras are also popular for taking to gigs and clubs, to use in a similar way to a disposable camera as a low risk way of shooting on film without having to worry about damaging a more expensive camera. I took a few photos at a gig at the Lanes using flash. A quick edit in Lightroom can improve this a little bit more as well. And for comparison, here's another shot with the same framing but without using the flash. So while this camera is usable in low light situations, it's not perfect, and it definitely doesn't deliver the highest quality images in low light environments. The camera has a plastic lens and it isn't claiming any great technical achievements, but its imperfections are quite noticeable. Here are some more daytime examples in more overcast conditions. For landscape and architecture, you can see the lens distortion quite heavily with a lot of bowing at the edges. Here I've corrected them quite easily in Lightroom, but that might be an extra step that you'd rather avoid. Also, looking closer at the images, you'll see the center of frame resolves detail quite nicely, but as you head towards the edges and corners, there is a lot of chromatic aberration. What this means is the lens can't focus all the colors to the same point, so we end up with this effect with color fringing on edges and areas of contrast that make it appear as if we should be wearing 3D glasses to put the image back together. As another example of lens artifacts, here's a shot pointing into direct sunlight creating a lens flare. Personally, I actually really like this shot despite its technical imperfections, and the camera performed well as I rushed to the window to snap a pic of this bright red hot air balloon passing by. I think that's an important reminder at this point in the review. This is a super lo-fi film camera that is not intended to be taken too seriously. It is pretty basic, but it's got enough features to get you started with taking photos on film and allows you to stay focused on composition and capturing the moment. Your choice of film with this camera will be important. I've chosen Fujifilm Color 400 as it's representative of a film I would recommend for a beginner to use with this camera. As a general rule, I would recommend 200 ISO film if you plan to take photos in consistent bright outdoor conditions, 400 if you want versatility for sunlight and overcast conditions, and 800 if you expect to use it mostly in low light conditions or indoors with flash. Here's a look at some more summery images with Kodak Gold 200, another great film stock for starting out with when using this camera. Overall, I think the Kodak Ultra F9 does a decent job as a simple use camera for beginners. The loading process, flash operation and rewind are all very straightforward, and although it is plasticky, I haven't had any concerns about it being fragile or breaking while in use, and it has a pleasing design and color scheme. It is slightly more expensive than the M35 and M38 Kodak cameras, but I don't feel it really delivers any significant advantages over those two models. So despite the slightly lower aperture, the main difference is the look of the camera, and if you want to save some money, I would recommend choosing the M35 or M38 over the Ultra F9. For reference, here are a few example photos taken with my Kodak M38. This simple use film camera is also available from filmprocessing.co.uk and linked down below. Let me know if you'd like to see a dedicated video on this camera in the future. I hope you found this video helpful if you're considering buying the Ultra F9 or are just getting started with using it. If you've watched this far, I'd really appreciate it if you can leave a like on this video or a comment if you have any feedback or suggestions for future videos. If you're new to my channel, make sure to subscribe for more film photography reviews and advice. Thanks for watching.